What if Yoda joined the Jedi Strike Force in Revenge of the Sith? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Palpatine sits calmly at his desk as he looks up at the new arrivals. He smiles as he regards the shapes of the 4 Jedi Masters.
Chancellor Palpatine, you are under arrest.
Master Windu, how unexpected. And you've brought friends. How kind of you to deliver them to me.
The Jedi ignite their lightsabers, the hum of the blades filling the room. Palpatine's smirk widens as he steps out from behind his desk, his confidence unshaken. But that is until Yoda steps forward, his small frame not hiding the immense power he controls. His green lightsaber ignites with a snap, and his eyes lock onto Palpatine's.
End this, we will. For too long, the shadow of the Sith has loomed over the galaxy.
For the first time, Palpatine's confidence falters. He had not anticipated Yoda's presence. He was supposed to be on Kashyyyk. It was planned so he could not intervene. But having him here poses a problem. He could beat any one of these Jedi Masters, but against all 5 of them. Palpatine leaps into the air, his crimson lightsaber slashing as he descends toward the Jedi. The room erupts into chaos as the strike team rushes him. He keeps them back with a quick series of swings, slashing at them and preventing them from attacking all at once. Mace, Windu, and Yoda fight in perfect harmony, one going on the attack and the other avoiding and evading. Meanwhile, Kit Fisto, Ajen Kalar, and CC-Teen flank Palpatine, attacking at once. Palpatine is a whirlwind of dark energy, trying to use the power to overwhelm him. He uses the Force to hurl Kit Fisto back when he tries to block, then slashes Ajen Kalar against the side. This gives Palpatine some breathing room, but Yoda continues pressing him, using the Force to hurl objects at him to disrupt his focus. He continues to slash them apart as Mace and CC-Teen rush at him, their lightsabers slashing at him, Palpatine barely catching these attacks. He smiles and then extends his free arm, unleashing a burst of lightning towards Mace, who shifts to the defensive. CC-Teen continues to keep his blade locked with Palpatine, but this is what the Chancellor expects and moves in a burst of movement, raining cuts until one lands and strikes him across the chest. However, as the Jedi Master falls, Yoda leaps above him, eyes burning in anger as he tries to slash him while Ajen Kalar swings at him. Palpatine slides back, watching as they bear down on him, raining attacks and keeping just one step ahead of him. Seeing them starting to gain an edge, he lifts his desk from its hinges and throws it at him. Yoda drops down underneath the attack, and Ajen Kalar braces his legs to slash it in half. But as he breaks it, Palpatine moves in and drives his lightsaber into his chest. Yoda leaps up again, his small frame practically a blur, raining slashes and cuts that Palpatine must defend against as Mace and Kit Fisto recover. Seeing their comrades fall, they must move cautiously, surrounding him and rushing at him. In a moment, he is surrounded, and Palpatine struggles to defend them as they mob him. Despite his best efforts, a few more of those blows get through, and Palpatine's body begins to fade as he feels his body burning. With a final blow, Mace drives his lightsaber into his chest. Palpatine's eyes glaze over as he drops to the ground. The 3 Masters take a deep breath, trying to recover from everything that just happened. They gasp, and Yoda helps tend to Kit's wounds. As he is about to finish, Anakin emerges into the office. His eyes widen as he sees Palpatine's body on the ground. The Jedi look up at him in confusion, but Mace purses his lips.
I seem to recall telling you to remain in the Jedi Temple. Still, we thank you for your warning. It seems you were correct about Chancellor Palpatine. Yes, I'm glad that he was taken care of. But what do we do now? The Senate will not be pleased with what we did.
Confront them, we will. Reveal the truth, we shall.
The 4 Jedi gather what evidence they can. Security footage from his office, and access his computer to find files that lead to connections with Dooku and the CIS, along with anything else. As Anakin searches, though, he cannot help but feel a stab of doubt at what they are doing. He begins to wonder whether he made the right choice. Though the Sith might be defeated, Padme is still helpless, and he doesn't know how to save her. But he cannot voice these concerns out loud, as he risks the Jedi uncovering the truth about him. Instead, he remains silent as the Jedi present this evidence to the Senate. The evidence is compelling, and many of them are convinced that the Chancellor is indeed the hidden Sith Lord. They agree that he should be removed from power, but not everyone is convinced of the Jedi's actions.
Regrettably, the Chancellor turned out to be such a monster. But we must also address the dangerous precedent the Jedi are setting here.
And what precedent is that, Admiral? Doing our duty?
Taking the law into your own hands, Master Jedi. You entered the office of our highest official and murdered him, without the consent of the Senate, I might add. Tell me, what is to stop them from doing this again?
The Senate that Palpatine controls. How long would it have taken for the Senate to agree to such a search? How long would it take for Palpatine to bury the evidence or escape?
He glares up at the Admiral, but Mas Amata calls for order before the two can come to blows, and Padme pounces on the opportunity, calling instead of a snap election. She points out that what is done, and they cannot change that. But the best step moving forward is to elect a new Chancellor, lest the Republic remain leaderless in these difficult times. This is something that most senators agree on, and candidates announce their candidacy. The two most prominent, though, are Mas Amata and Bail Organa, who represent polar opposite factions. A date is set, and it seems like the matter is settled. However, Tarkin suddenly commands restrictions to the Jedi Order, restricting their control over the military and placing them in subordinate roles. He says this is a security precaution to prevent future incidents. He even goes as far as to suggest enacting martial law to prevent any future violence. Although this normally would have been unthinkable, the recent Jedi attack does have the Senate on edge, and surprisingly, the vote passes with considerable support, forcing a curfew and additional security measures in public arenas. The Jedi are not exempt from this, especially those Masters who took part in the attack. Those who took part in the attack are to be confined in the temple, and those who didn't will be monitored closely. The group leaves, dejected but hopeful of the outcome. Bail Organa is quite popular, and they have momentum on their side. In the initial weeks, he conducts a flurry of campaigns, aiming to gather support. With only a few months, there is little time to waste, and he spends all of his free time campaigning, promising to return power to the people and end the Clone Wars with whatever means possible, even a diplomatic solution. For the war-weary population, this is welcome news, and with the revelations of Palpatine's dealings, many of the war faction's allies are distancing themselves from them. In the opening stages of the campaign, it does genuinely seem like he has the advantage, putting the rigid and unpopular Mas Amata on the back foot. He initially attempts to promise security, but these are disliked by the population, who see it as simply another form of oppression. What does get him a bit more momentum is promising to dismantle the Senate entirely, as he insists that it is too corrupt to save, and that a new institution must be created to ensure the survival of the Republic. This gets him a bit more attention from the people who have long seen the Senate as corrupt and impotent. Slowly but surely, Mas Amata gains a following, but still, the election remains close, with Bail getting a slight advantage. Anakin Skywalker remains apathetic towards this. He spends all his free time with Padme, watching over her like a hawk with her impending birth. But that changes when he is summoned to Admiral Tarkin's office.
General Skywalker, I know we have had our differences, but I think this election is our chance to bury the hatchet. You've spoken to the Chancellor at length before his death about the state of the Republic. He's told me you share the same thoughts as Mas Amata regarding the state of the Senate. Surely that is a reason to support him.
You think a non-apology is enough to make me support you? Senator Organa is a good man, and one of the Jedi's strongest allies. I will not betray him.
Surely his loyalty to one group should not be enough to win your loyalty, especially when it was proven to be so easily bought before.
Excuse me?
You think the Chancellor kept this a secret? He was quite open about his friendship and allegiance with you. I know more than you know, and if you do not cooperate, I may be forced to divulge certain details about your personal affairs.
And what is stopping me from simply cutting you down? Don't say the Jedi Code. You're not that stupid.
What about the security of your wife? I have access to the most advanced healthcare in the galaxy, including some studied by the Chancellor himself. You should help me. I could provide you with this equipment.
Anakin pauses, looking at Tarkin and then biting his lip as he considers his options. Unfortunately, it is clear that this offer is too good to refuse, and Anakin agrees. Soon enough, Tarkin puts him to work securing support. They find a loophole in Tarkin's orders, as Anakin did not take part in the attack. He is allowed to leave, and Anakin spends that time secretly visiting senators whose support remains undecided. He reminds them of the Chancellor's loyalty and support for them in the past, despite previous scandals, and warns that if they back down now, he might be forced to reveal this unsavory information. Senators like Orn Free Ta are quickly pacified by this and back down. Other times he visits senators whose profits and wealth were built by the war faction like Senator Bertani, warning that siding with the peace faction might lead them to losing out on lucrative contracts. Others are swayed by fears of exposure, reminding them that the Jedi have considerable influence under Senator Organa, and if he wins, they will be in a position to begin looking into different cases. The recent incident with Palpatine has them spooked, and many are eager to purge the Senate for anything tied to the Sith. Soon enough, reports on the HoloNet flood in with senators, many previously neutral, now stating they are throwing their support behind Mas Amata, saying they are worried about Jedi favoritism and their increasing politicization in the Republic. It is a victory, but one Anakin takes little pride in. He made it happen, but he does not enjoy it. He did as little as he could, targeting unlikely senators to support Bail Organa anyway, and not telling anything that was a lie, while still appeasing Tarkin. Yet, even these minor acts still leave him feeling guilty. However, it turns out his claims are not too far from the truth, as the Jedi are indeed working with Bail Organa. While their options are limited, they do find someone to help them, Ahsoka Tano. If she is no longer a Jedi, she is not affected by these restrictions, and helps Bail Organa in whatever way she can. Unlike Anakin, who serves primarily behind closed doors, Ahsoka works openly. She is a well-known figure as a veteran of the Clone Wars, but also one who has suffered in the hands of the Jedi and the Senate with what is now known as the Jedi bombing affair. Many expect her to rule against the Jedi, criticizing them for their mistakes in the past, but to their surprise, she voices her support in favor of them. While acknowledging their many mistakes that have led to immense suffering, she urges voters not to become radicalized or to lose hope, reminding them that there are still good people in the Senate, like Bail Organa. Alongside Padme, the pair travel through areas most neglected, like the lower districts, the clone barracks, and refugee camps, to talk with people. Despite her pregnancy and exhaustion, she soldiers through, much to Anakin's concern. By now, the pregnancy is in its advanced stages, and she requires constant supervision, but she continues to work. This only fuels Anakin's worry about her, as he worries that something might happen to her and gives Tarkin more ammunition, urging him to end this election as quickly as possible so she may rest. Rather than dictate to them, they empathize with the voters and try to understand their concerns and problems. They understand these people have lost hope, but they don't just make promises and offer something tangible. This prevents Bail Organa's campaign from fully tanking and keeps him in the running. However, whatever grassroots efforts they manage to develop, they cannot compete with the dirty politics utilized by Tarkin and Anakin. Slowly but surely, Mas Amata's lead begins to grow. However, the chaos does not go unnoticed by Bail or his team. They notice how, despite many criticisms of Mas Amata, even among the citizenry, his lead in the polls continues to grow, and they suspect something is happening under the table. Ahsoka offers to investigate and targets one of the senators who has been wavering lately. The underbelly of Coruscant is always loud, allowing Ahsoka to move through the darkness undetected, as she spies on one of the fair-weathered senators, Mac Plain. The senator representing the banking clan had initially promised to back Bail Organa under the promise that his people would be given fair treatment after the war, but he has since stopped responding to Bail's messages, making it seem like he may have changed sides. She exhales, pulling her hood tighter over her head as she makes her way to a rundown slum building owned by him, where he was spotted earlier that day. And as she gets closer, she spots his guards still outside, letting in small groups of people. Ahsoka is careful to peer through one of the windows, watching as these people being led inside are handed cash, food, and other supplies in exchange for pre-filled ballots. Vote buying. Her instincts tell her to act immediately, to grab the senator and expose the corruption right here. But she doesn't. She feels something. A presence. Suddenly, she finds herself losing balance from the window and tumbles off. She barely catches herself on the ground and looks around. The crowd is startled to see her, but she pays them no attention, instead scanning the area for any signs of the Force user. Her eyes flick to the far side where a cloaked figure lingers near the corner. Their stance is rigid and focused. Ahsoka makes her move. Leaping over the crowd, she draws her lightsabers and brandishes them.
Stop!
In an instant, the figure draws his lightsaber and rushes at her. Ahsoka crosses her weapons just in time, feeling the heat of his blades singeing her skin. She then twists and pushes them back, getting into a defensive stance and rushing forward. Her lightsabers strike low and quick, trying to knock him off his feet, but he blocks the strike and forces her to go high instead. As their weapons lock, she tries to look past his hood to glance at his features, but it remains dark. And then the attack pivots and sweeps his weapon, driving her back. As Ahsoka stumbles, the attacker advances, bearing down heavy blows on her that place her on the defensive. She grits her teeth to hold his strikes back, but his power is too strong, and it throws her back. Ahsoka finds herself stumbling, dropping to the ground as her hood falls back. The attacker raises his lightsaber and prepares to finish her off, but freezes when he glances down at her face. Suddenly, he pushes his hood down, and Anakin's face becomes visible.
Anakin?
Ahsoka, what are you doing here?
I could ask you the same thing. You should be in the Jedi Temple before you get in trouble with Admiral No.
Ahsoka, you have to understand. There's a lot that you don't know.
You're working for Tarkin? How could you do this? You know what he is. What you're doing. This isn't you, Anakin.
I don't have a choice. The situation is complicated.
Anakin, whatever is happening, we could work through it together. Just tell me what's going on.
She reaches out for him with her weapons dipping. This is long enough for Anakin, who turns and runs off, leaving Ahsoka behind. She screams and tries to lunge after him, but he is lost in the crowds. When the news breaks about Anakin's involvement in Bail Organa's campaign, it sends them to a panic. Anakin is one of the greatest heroes of the Clone Wars. If he were to openly announce his support for Mas Amedda, it would be disastrous and effectively end Bail's campaign. The only thing they can do is raise the alarm bells to the public. They begin releasing speeches saying that they suspect corruption in the upcoming elections. While it concerns some people, they lack the proof to truly back it up, so they fail to get much support from the people. This places them in a critical position, as they must find a way to prove that Mas Amedda is cheating in an election. More importantly, they must understand why Anakin is supporting them. In particular, Padme is horrified upon learning this, at first denying that her husband could support them, but the evidence is too clear. This task falls upon Ahsoka to figure out the truth. Padme implores her to learn the truth as she can barely travel. In the Jedi Temple, the remaining Jedi Masters close their eyes and meditate, trying to track down Anakin, knowing that wherever he is, Tarkin will not be far behind. They manage to track him down to the military district of the city, specifically those of the Coruscant Guard. Ahsoka and a strike team are soon assembled to join him. Ahsoka moves like a shadow through the dimly lit roof of the Republic military headquarters. The facility is quieter than usual, as many of the garrisons are deeper into the barracks to greet visitors. From the window, she spots them as Mas Amedda stands at the front, flanked by Admiral Tarkin and several high-ranking officers, including Commander Fox.
We must ensure that the election results are peaceful. That is why the Coruscant garrison will be deployed to deal with dissidents. You cannot be too careful, especially with those who wish to cause discontent by suggesting the elections are corrupt.
The soldiers all salute, nodding their heads and pledging their support.
Public sentiment can be swayed, but we require order in the streets to solidify support. The Senate is weak-willed. If necessary, we will enforce security measures until the transition is complete.
Ahsoka's eyes narrow, taking her recording device and taking a close look at them to make sure her recording device gets all of this. They're planning to rig the election, possibly even using the military to suppress dissent. She spots a datapad propped up against one of Tarkin's aides and uses the Force to lift it up. Once she has it in her hands, she prepares to run off, but then she feels the presence once again, the same presence she felt in the lower districts. Ahsoka takes a deep breath and prepares herself. She reaches for her lightsaber as a blue lightsaber suddenly ignites.
Give it to me, Ahsoka.
I can't do that, Master.
Ahsoka, you don't know what kind of situation you're getting into. This isn't a game for you to play. There's a lot more at stake than you realize.
I don't think you realize how much is at stake. You're playing with the fate of the Republic, Anakin. Countless people, and yet you're willing to gamble with their lives. What happened to you?
Anakin takes a step closer, waving his lightsaber dangerously. Ahsoka readies her own and clips the datapad to her belt. She glances towards him and runs off. Ahsoka dashes through the roofs of the military district, using the Force to propel her further with Anakin close behind. They are illuminated by the neon lights of the buildings around them. She glances back and sees Anakin taking a lunging leap at her, shouting her name. Ahsoka parries his lightsaber strike and pushes it aside before turning back once more. When she approaches a large gap, she leaps from speeder to speeder, ignoring the startled cries of drivers as she moves as quickly as she appears. Anakin is close behind, moving to higher traffic and watching Ahsoka below. He slashes at a nearby neon sign, sending it crashing towards her. Ahsoka barely slides underneath it as she makes her way to a bridge connecting two buildings. She glances around and sees Anakin leaping from a rail and bringing his lightsaber down in a slash. She blocks these blows and pushes them aside, just as Anakin begins raining down attacks on her. Anakin swings wide. She barely avoids losing her weapon and rains a set of quick attacks on him, which he quickly avoids.
This is pointless, Ahsoka. You can't win this fight.
It's not about winning. It's about stopping you from making a terrible mistake.
Ahsoka pushes forward, redirecting his next strike and running off, heading toward a secluded building. But just as Anakin follows after her, she sees a pair of figures stepping out. One of them ignites his lightsaber, putting Anakin on the defensive, but his eyes widen as he sees Obi-Wan's face. However, the more shocking one is the second figure, Padme.
That's enough, Anakin.
Padme, what are you doing here?
I could ask you the same thing, Anakin.
You shouldn't be here. You should be resting.
So should you. I come back from Utapau to see the Senate in chaos, the Jedi under house arrest, and you in the center of it all? What happened?
I'm doing my duty.
Duty? To who? The Jedi? The Republic? Or your friend Tarkin?
You don't understand.
You're right. We don't understand. And it's because you refuse to tell us.
Padme, what you need to know is that I'm trying to stop you from getting hurt.
How can I rest when the person hunting me is you?
Anakin catches his breath, his defenses cracking.
That's not true.
It is. You've turned your back on everything you believe in. You expect us to just trust you as you keep all these secrets from us. Anakin, this isn't right. Please, if you want to protect me, then talk to me.
Silence. Ahsoka watches, heart hammering. For the first time since this all started, she sees it. The moment of doubt in Anakin's eyes. His lightsaber drops from his hand as he looks at them.
Tarkin. He's blackmailing me. He knows I was spying on the Chancellor. He knows the deal that Palpatine offered me, and how I accepted it.
You were in the Chancellor's office? You weren't there to stop him?
No. I was there to save him. He threatened to make this information public. But if I cooperate, he could save you. I saw you dying. I saw the visions.
Anakin, I'm not going anywhere.
All of this, Anakin. Did you think we wouldn't understand? We would never let something like this happen to Padme.
I would have helped you, Anakin. I will help you. But only if we make this right.
He looks at them, overwhelmed by their words, and then bows his head, feeling his tears start to stream down his eyes, though whether they are from relief or shame, he cannot tell. Days later, he appears before the Senate with the datapad Ahsoka had stolen. Tarkin tries to deny it, saying it's fabricated, but Anakin provides witness testimony. As one of the greatest war heroes, his word is as good as gold, and this collapses Mas Amata's momentum as many of his allies abandon him, allowing Bail Organa to claim victory. His first act is to pardon the Jedi for their roles, but to strip them of their military position. Anakin is spared a prison sentence for his confession, but he cannot be allowed to go completely unpunished, so is asked to leave the Jedi Council, a punishment he accepts. He begins to negotiate with the CIS, while after giving birth to their children, Padme heads to the organization that begins addressing the needs of the poorest people in the Republic. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.